customary that we...
$110.
Actually, it's gone up. It's $25 automatic donation to the North Lake Tea Party. Also, this event is co-sponsored by the Lake Federated Republican Women's Club, and I want to point out that they are responsible for the goodies we have over in the corner. And both of these groups are self-supporting through our own contributions, and we have a donation bucket over there if you guys are so inclined. Also, I would like to bring up my good friend Lou Brown, who's going to lead us in a prayer to pledge. Please stand if you would. Thank you, Lou. It's customary in our group to read our mission statement for the North Lake Tea Party, and we are people taking action to hold our elected representatives accountable to our U.S. Constitution and our founding principles, and those principles include fiscal responsibility,
limited government.
So we have some Tea Party members here? Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Now we're going to get on with our program. Well, what I'd like to do is to bring up the candidates. We've got Gary Cooney and Jason Paynter here, and I want to acknowledge these guys for their courage to stand up and to become an elected representative here in our county. It takes a lot of courage, and let's give these guys a hand. My work here is done. The reason why you guys are here is we have a special guest, our moderator tonight, J.C. Martin, who happens to be the chairman of the Polk County Republican Party. He came up here tonight all the way from Polk County. He happens to be the parliamentarian for the Republican Party of Florida. He's also the chairman of the CD9 caucus at the RPOF, and he's also the chairman of the Polk County Board of Adjusters. Is it adjusters? Adjustment. Evidently, there's folks in Polk County that need some adjustment. This is the guy to do it. So he's also he's been a Republican since 1972, involved in politics. Please give a warm Lake County welcome to our moderator, J.C. Martin.
Thanks, Andy. Candidates, please be seated. One thing I do for the RPOF is I teach parliamentary procedure. One of those things is maintaining a proper meeting room. We will not abide by any hecklers. Any hecklers or ne'er-do-wells will be hogtied and forced to listen to 8 hours of Barack Obama. So other than that, we will not tolerate anything. If you can't be nice and applaud, don't do anything at all. Okay? We're a civil group here. I think we're all Republicans, or mostly, but in any case, there are questions that I've sort of melded a little bit from some sample questions. I do not know either of the candidates, so I'm just the referee here. Candidates, you'll each have 3 minutes for an opening statement. Questions will alternate between you. You'll have 2 minutes. If you mention or attack the other, then that person has 30 seconds to rebut. We do not tolerate filibustering, leaving out punctuation so that you have an endless sentence when you run out of time. When you're out of time, don't make me call you out that you've run out of time. The timekeeper is going to have a little red signal. It's green while you're talking. 30 seconds is yellow. When that turns red, shut up. I say that in the nicest way. But we're not wasting anybody's time here with rambling answers. You can't say it in 2 minutes, don't try. We're going to try and go around with some of these questions and some questions from the audience. But for the audience, your job now is to civilly listen, and then you decide later. Okay? Everybody in agreement on these terms? Yes. I can't hear you. Yes. Okay. Well, let's get started. Have the candidates decided who's going to start first. Then we'll go left to right. You'll start with opening statement, you'll follow, then you'll take the first opening question. Fair enough? Timekeeper starts.
Good evening. A lot of you know me, particularly this side of the room, but a lot of the folks from the Tea Party. My name is Gary Cooney. I'm the current clerk of the court here in Lake County. I was appointed by Governor Rick Scott after my boss, Neil Kelly, retired. Prior to that, for 7 years, I was Neil's second. That meant I ran the operation of the office for Neil. Neil set policy, and he made sure I carried that policy out and made sure the operation ran smooth. Since 2011, my time there, we have reduced our budget by $1.3 million. We've reduced our staff by 25%. A lot of people say, did you terminate folks? No, we did not. We budgeted properly. We used attrition, and we used technology. I have 184 great employees, and we would not terminate any of those employees to save budget money unless it was absolutely necessary, so we used technology and attrition. At the same time, we expanded our hours at the office, and we expanded your ability to look at our records. You can now go online and look at our court records from the smartphone that's currently counting down to 2 minutes. We recently enacted something that I think you might be interested in. We put together a recording notification for fraud. So if you go on our website now, you're able to click on that, give us your email address, give us various variations of your name, and we will tell you anytime anything gets recorded in our public record that has your name on it, that you can check to make sure that it's not fraudulent. Let me tell you a little bit about me, because I now have only half my time left. So I am the child of Howard and Ethel Cooney. My father was an electrician in a chemical plant. My mother was the head cashier at a grocery store in Lynn Haven, Florida. Lynn Haven was 1,500 people growing up there, and as you might imagine, I could not get away with anything. I went to Stetson University and got a degree in accounting, and I went to the University of Florida College of Law and got a law degree. At the University of Florida College of Law, I met my wife, Carla, who's sitting here in the front row of the audience, well, almost front row of the audience. We have 3 children. We have Tyler. He's a 31-year-old Marine captain, currently at Camp Pendleton, about to be shipped off to Iraq. We have Jordan. She's a 27-year-old MD, practicing an OBGYN at McGee Women's Hospital in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And we have Madison. She's a 22-year-old, first day today law student. And she went to Tommy's place. She went to FSU instead of UF. So I want to tell you that one of the things that we do in the office, so we're the clerk of the court, but we also manage your money. We manage $150 million of your money every day. And my accounting degree is suitable to do just that. We pay $260 million of your bills for the county every day. And I recognize that it's your money, and I make sure that it's spent appropriately. I've been endorsed by the state attorney in the 5th Circuit, Brad King, and I look forward to earning your vote tonight on August 28th. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Jason Paynter. I'm a candidate for Clerk of Court. JC, some of the rules you had, I told my wife the same thing about the heckling, so thank you for reaffirming that. Lifelong residents here in Lake County. I grew up on 452. I have 6 other brothers: Jimmy, Johnny, Jeffrey, Jay, Jason, Joshua, Jacob. My parents' name is Jim and Judy. My dad is a contractor. My 2 older brothers are contractors, and ever since I was strong enough to pick up a shovel or a hammer, he's taught me that trade of how to do construction. A couple other brothers, one's a pastor, but they're all right here in Lake County, spread out through the county. My wife, that I've been married to for 25 years, happily, Vicky. Well, she's probably been happily married half of that time, but I've been happily married the whole time. Then my oldest daughter, Alexis, who just graduated from UF. My youngest daughter just started UF, and my middle daughter, Taylor, Taylor, I'm looking at you and looking at Summer. And then Summer, she's in a nursing program at Rasmussen to be an RN. A little bit about me. My career started at Leesburg Police Department. I was 18. They gave me a big, thick book and put a .357 Magnum on my side and said, good luck. I had no idea what I was doing, but over the years I developed the most important thing that I knew that I was doing as a law enforcement officer, and that was the folks that I was dealing with. I didn't retire. I left Leesburg after about 3 years, and I came here to Tavares Police, where I retired as second in command of the Tavares Police Department as a lieutenant. I help with the chief with our budgeting, with administration, with organization, with our events, things like that. It was a team effort, and I appreciated all my years of serving here in our community for those years. When I retired, I went to an electric company in Leesburg called Electrical Works as their administrator. The owner had hit a wall as far as what he could do with his company. I went in there, shook it up, put fresh eyes on it, changed some things around, put people in the right spot, added, implemented organizational structure, leadership, changed the culture. That company is now a multi-million-dollar company. We're all over the state of Florida. I'm actually very proud of that, more so than the police department, because I actually got the opportunity to be the number one versus the number two. Tonight, you're going to hear some questions. I hope that I'm clear in what I want to bring to the clerk's office, and I hope that I earn your vote for August 28th, or even tomorrow, because it is early voting. So that's me in a nutshell, and I look forward to answering any of your questions. Thank you, Jason Paynter.
Alrighty, we'll start with the questions. And before I start asking the questions, I will advise both candidates. You have 2 minutes. Doesn't mean you have to use 2 minutes. If it's a 1-minute answer, you're welcome to stop. Everybody will appreciate that. If you do mention your opponent will get 30 seconds to rebut. But that's only if you mention, attack, accuse, or in some way malign your opponent. So we're going to start out with a question. What will your first 100 days look like? What services do you think need to be changed immediately? And what are the top challenges for the clerk of the court?
Well, of course, in my first 100 days, I'll do an audit of policies, the procedures, and the evidence, and basically the way the clerk is going. Coming into a new company, you don't want to go changing anything, but you want to look at it and see where everything's in place, if it's in the right place, or if it needs to be moved. Did you say the greatest challenges in the first 100 days? Changing that? I'm sorry. I'm using my 2 minutes.
What might need to be changed immediately, and the top challenges?
I can't give you anything that needs to be changed immediately. That would be remiss of me to say anything on that aspect till I've been in there and has actually looked at it. The biggest top challenge, and this is what my platform's been this whole time, is getting the community involvement and bringing value, respect, and quality of life issues. And by the way, that affects the staff as well too. It's just not for the person that comes up to the counter. So that's will be one of my first goals on that.
So I think in the next 100 days, what we'll be doing at the office, one of the things that we're going to be doing is make us even more efficient. We recently purchased a software robot. We currently, every day that we work, we get paperwork from the Sheriff's Department of folks who are in jail, and we put that arrest paperwork in our system manually. It takes one of my intake clerks about 20 minutes to put that paperwork into the system. We purchased a software robot who can put that same paperwork into our system in about 30 seconds. That will allow me to retrain those employees and move them to other positions, cross-train employees a little bit better than we've been able to do in the past, not terminate any employees, certainly, but make sure that we are a little bit more efficient than we even are right now, and we are, I think, plenty efficient. So that's the big technology change, perhaps, in the first 100 days. You heard me talk about the new system we just brought online yesterday. We'll make sure that continues to work. We'll make sure our servers don't crash if people start hitting it very hard to look at those documents that come out for fraud. I will not be doing an evidence inventory. We actually had a random evidence check. If you inventoried our evidence, it would probably take you about 2 years. The person who's in charge of my evidence is in the room tonight. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces of evidence in 4 vaults in the courthouse. We maintain that. We double check those periodically. We audit those periodically to make sure no evidence is missing. That will not be one of my priorities. But I'll continue to have a smooth operation with my employees. As I mentioned earlier, I have 184 great employees. We will continue to reach out and provide excellent customer service in that first 100 days.
All right, this is a combination of a couple questions together. What do you, let me rephrase it, Clerk of the Court also serves as the county's chief financial officer or controller. What do you see your role is specifically with the Board of County Commission, and what do you see as the most important roles of the job?
So, we also are the clerk of the Board of County Commissioners, and we are the comptroller. We're actually two things for the County Commission. So we keep the County Commission's records, and we keep the records of the things that they do as a board. But we also manage your money, as I mentioned in the opening. So for us, and it really is the same number I mentioned, it is a big number. It's $150 million of your money that is invested or else in liquid accounts so that we can pay bills as the tax cycle goes through the year. So you'll get a peak of taxes that we have in place, and those go into investments, and then as those tax monies are spent, we move money from investments. It's preservation of capital is our main goal in that instance. We do not look for the highest interest rate. We don't look for risky investments. We make sure that your capital is preserved. The flip side of that is we do pay those bills, and as I mentioned, last year we paid over $260 million worth of bills on your behalf. And when we do that, we fly-spec those bills. We make sure in our finance department that those bills are budgeted for, they are authorized by the appropriate people, and they are expended by the appropriate people. About 4 weeks ago now, we actually saw a bill come through for $35 out of that $260 billion. And we looked at it, we realized that it wasn't appropriately authorized, we rejected it, and we made the person who was trying to submit that bill pay for that themselves. So we take that job very seriously on that side of the office. We make sure that the payroll is correct, we do the board's payroll. We are the Value Adjustment Board staff. I had my first Value Adjustment Board meeting today, organizing the Value Adjustment Board for coming up this year. And that's anybody who wants to challenge anything that happens in the property appraiser's office, either for their value or their exemption. We staff that board. So we have multiple functions on the county side of the office. We have a transfer budget that pays for that the county commission uses.
Can you repeat that question, Gary? It's like a lot of those. I want to make sure I got the right one.
What do you consider to be the most important role of the clerk of the courts, and how do you see the different roles, including dealing with the Board of County Commissioners?
Okay, dealing with the Board of County Commissioners, that he's correct as far as in that we are holding the record for the county commissioners and their money. And I assume this is why we would be at a county commission meeting, is because we do have that money and we do hold the record. If there's any questions, of course, they'd want to be able to ask the clerk of court. And I think that's the answer that I was going to give. Thank you.
Next one digs into a little bit of a different area. This is a combination of what I've already had and part of a write-in question. Will you provide your office or your deputies detailed guides for pro se or self-representing defendants for all types of cases, not just family law, specifically to the completion or filing of legal documents? More or less, will you coach folks that don't want to buy a lawyer or can't afford it?
Okay, I know there's a difference between giving legal advice. Being a police officer, we used to, you help people out as far as what they should do, get a lawyer, or they need to go in this direction. I've said this in other forums. There's a big difference between giving legal advice and helping somebody that needs help. I have zero problem with helping folks that need help. A lot of the folks that come in and use the courthouse, they're either they're going through a tough milestone in their life. They don't need one extra added burden of confusion by their government to get through that process. So I understand there's a fine line between legal advice, but always err on the side of help has been my general rule. You can never go wrong helping somebody.
So Section 454.18 Florida statutes prohibits me as an attorney and working for the clerk's office when I was with Neil, and me as an attorney as the clerk, from dispensing legal advice. It's a misdemeanor to do so if I do it. So I can't do it. My deputy clerks cannot do it. We cannot issue legal advice. So what we do is we provide access to documents. You can come in the courthouse, you can go online on our computers, you can look at the Supreme Court's website, and the Supreme Court has produced self-help pro se forms in family law, landlord-tenant, and other types of cases. We cannot tell folks how to fill those out. We can tell folks how we normally see those documents come to us, and we have a guide of the documents that normally come through for landlord-tenant. Folks can get help at the courthouse, not from the clerk. Folks can actually go to the court administration folks, which is the court side of the office, it's OSCA, the Office of Court Administration, and get help for some of their pro se issues. We do help some pro se folks in domestic violence injunctions. We are required by statute to help those folks fill out the petitions that the Supreme Court has approved. We do that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We are the same folks who also help sex victims and what have you, stalking victims, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We do help with those types of cases routinely. So my folks come in at night anytime one of those cases arises and we need to come in.
Next question. Change pace a little bit. With elections occurring every 2 years in Monroe County, what are your thoughts on incurring the expense of replacing stationery, envelopes, etc., because the constitutional officers' names may change on these documents every election cycle?
Oh, back to Gary. I'm sorry.
Last speak first.
Gotcha.
And so the clerk's office is constitutional officer normally elected during the presidential cycle, which is every 4 years. So if you get a new clerk, the documents that go out, for example, if you were to get a ticket and you get an envelope, you get a nice little blue envelope that comes back to me, and that envelope needs to make sure it gets to me, so it needs to have Clerk of the Court of Lake County, Gary Cooney. One of the things that we can't do is put Neil's name on something. So all the envelopes that were out there, for example, when Neil retired, it said Neil Kelly. So in our office, we weighed, for example, the cost of putting a label, buying labels that would have my name on those envelopes as the return label, and buying new envelopes. And the cost was minimal between the two, and it saved me a lot of staff time to not have my staff sticking labels on a bunch of things. So I don't have a problem if you need to get the information to the right place. Our folks who run the mail not only for me, they run the mail for all of the county offices. So I have a staff that runs mail for the county offices. One of the things, and I feel really sorry for them, and I wish we had the budget to buy this nice little machine that destroys hazardous materials, but I call part of our process the scratch and sniff detection method for hazardous materials. So I literally have employees who are in a sealed room who open everything that's going to come to the courthouse or the county administration building or the sheriff's department or any other constitutional officer to make sure there's nothing hazardous in there. So it is a big job. We need to know where that mail is supposed to go. We need to have return addresses that gets mail back to us if it doesn't go to the right place or it gets undelivered. So we control that mail tightly, and we need to make sure it is done efficiently.
For the envelopes, of course, anything they'll say the taxpayers' money. I know that it varies from clerk to clerk. For me, I think an envelope that it's either printed to where if you have a different clerk that comes in either through an election, or if the current clerk gets sick, car wreck, or can't perform his duties and has to leave midterm, you don't want to go back through the whole process of reprinting all new envelopes over. So I'm sure there's a way that you can minimize that effect with the envelopes where you're just changing the name and it prints out a different name without having gone through the whole process of a whole new envelope or purchasing brand new ones.
All right, stay standing because now you're first.
Okay.
This is from the audience. What are your views on nepotism, hiring your own relatives?
When I worked for the city of Tavares, John Drury came in and he was totally against nepotism. There were folks that had a cousin's, third niece's nephew, half removed, that just moved down to Florida and wanted to be a lifeguard at the splash park. He said no. So I actually asked him about that. I'm like, because there's some that varies on either way, and I'm going to get to my opinion, and it's the same as what he said. Anytime that you have where your family and family and family is working in one organization, if something occurs, of course, if it's all sunshine and rainbows at work, everything's good. Let one of your family members get in trouble or stumble or fall or something occurs at work where they get in trouble, it creates a domino effect, which is not good for morale within an organization. And, of course, with the police department, we did not allow nepotism. So I would be against that. Of course, if it is occurring in the clerk's office, you'd have to look at grandfathering that in. You don't just fire somebody because they're a nephew or a sister, but any new hires or anything like that, I'd be totally against that. Thank you.
I think I've described what my children do and where they are, and my wife's a lawyer in private practice, so the chance of me hiring one of them to work in the office is zero. It would be prohibited under Chapter 112 Florida statutes, and I can't hire one of my relatives in the office, so it's statutorily prohibited. We do have staff members who are related to other staff members, but they do not supervise each other. Sometimes they're in different departments and what have you. If we find a good applicant, we're not going to exclude that applicant just because they happen to be related to somebody who already works there, but we make sure they're not supervised by one of their relatives, and most of the time they're in actually a separate department. But once again, if it's nepotism, it's illegal. I can't hire my wife Carla, I can't hire my son Tyler, my daughter Jordan, or my daughter Madison.
While you're up, the next question. Everyone agrees it's essential that the clerk of the court preserves public records. What shortcomings are you currently aware of that could be improved to better preserve public records or access to them?
So I'll start with the access question first. We, in 2015, for the first time, allowed you to access our records via the internet, our court records via the internet. Prior to that, you were able to access our official records via the internet. We are required by Chapter 119, on one hand, to make confidential certain pieces in the official records. We are required by Florida Rule of Court 2.420 to make confidential 22 items in our court records. So we jealously guard the confidentiality of things that need to be kept confidential in those records. And the second half of the question?
Was any failings in currently preserving?
I don't believe we have any failings currently preserving them. One of the things that we do have is a backlog of paper files. In 2013, we went all electronic in our office, so we do not have paper files for court anymore. So if you look for a court record, one of the things that may take a little bit more time, if that record is beyond 2006, so if it's 2005, 2004, 1984, we're going to have to retrieve that record from the warehouse. We'll have to scan it in for you. We'll have to check for confidentiality, and then we'll release it for you. The gentleman who supervises that operation is sitting here in the audience tonight. I've had him estimate for us the amount of records that we have that are those records, and he tells me it's over 50 million pages. So if you're looking for something from the early 1900s, it's going to take us a little bit to get it. We know where it is. Get it and put it on.
My first thought with the security of the record, especially with electronics, would just to be to look at the third-party vendor. I assume that's when the records are scanned, it's not there in case something happened to the courthouse. It's off-site with a different vendor that secures that record. I know we had that with the police department. So I would just mainly be looking at what their process is and how they actually have the record secured and then able to bring it back if you need it online.
Well, you're up.
We'll figure this out here soon.
Oh, change of pace. It's an open question. What's your definition of leadership?
There's many definitions of leadership. The one that best describes me is probably coaching. I'm more of telling you the vision, showing you that vision, and then allowing you to perform the task that you've been assigned. I'm definitely not heavy-handed. I don't punish for failure. That's something that everyone gets to learn from. So for me, my definition of leadership would be the coaching to where I'm there with you. I'm just not going to be in the middle of what you're trying to accomplish that we're both wanting to see achieved. So I would say I was coaching leadership is me.
For me, it's hiring good people treating them the way you want to be treated. I was told early on by a circuit judge who was a really good friend of mine, who is now deceased, that you can tell the character of someone based on how they treat someone who can do them no harm. So if you're the leader of the organization, if you're a boss of the organization, your employees may cause something to happen that causes harm to the organization, but my employees can do me no harm. And so you need to treat them with courtesy and respect. But you need to hire good employees who are suitable for the job. We have those employees. You need to hire people that are smarter than you, which isn't too hard for me. So I have a lot of great employees who really know their job, and I get out of their way and let them do their job. I also expect them to ask me if they have any issues and any questions so that we can resolve those issues for our customers. So I am always there. And one of the other things I do, if we have a difficult customer, if you think about it, the folks who come to the courthouse, in many instances, unless they're there for a marriage license or a passport, and we issue a lot of those every year. We issue 4,000 marriage licenses and 10,000 passports. They're the happy. Most of the folks who are there in court are not very happy to be there. And I have some frontline folks, and if they start having problems with my frontline folks, they know they can call me to resolve those problems. So I do not allow my employees to take the brunt of someone's unhappiness without giving them backup.
Please explain your understanding of Florida's open records and sunshine laws.
All right. So Chapter 119, so there's actually two things. So Chapter 119 is the Florida Open Records Law, if you will. Chapter 286 is the Sunshine Law. So 286 says that you can't have a meeting of a committee that's going to make a decision, it's a governmental committee, unless it's in the sunshine, except in certain circumstances. 286 doesn't apply to my office. 286 applies to the Board of County Commissioners. It doesn't apply to my office. Chapter 119 applies to part of my office. Chapter 119 applies to my administrative records and my official records. The court records, in a case called Ake v. New York Times, are not subject to Chapter 119. Chapter 119 only applies, I told you, to those two types. So my court records are governed by the Supreme Court of Florida. The Supreme Court of Florida publishes rules of court. And in Rule 2.420, the Supreme Court has told me what is out there that is to be kept confidential and what is out there that's to be public. Until 2015, the Supreme Court would not allow a clerk, for example, to put records out on the internet. There was a pilot program in a different county, and once that pilot program was successful, the Supreme Court turned us loose to allow those records for you. And so there's big differences between those on either side of the office. If you're after Chapter 119 records, you have the ability to come to my office and copy those. If you're after court records, we actually make those available to you in electronic format via the internet now. There's no need to come in the office unless you need a certified copy.
The Sunshine Law is, like Gary had said, you get two commissioners speaking, they can't discuss county business. The open records, with the police department, if you want a copy of the report, they're going to redact certain vital information, Social Security, addresses or date of birth, anything that could basically give someone the information on that person. But as far as what the story is going to be, that's why it's called an open record. You can go ask for it, they'll give it to you, they'll redact some of the information, but it's yours.
What community involvement have you had prior to running for the clerk of court?
Well, being a police officer here, I've always been involved in our chamber through the city. As you can tell, the Leesburg Chamber, eating, breakfast, lunches, pretty much anywhere there's food, that's where I was my entire career. I also serve on our board up here at Bridges Covenant Church. I guess you could call it a deacon. It's a leadership team there at the church. I'm an ELK member. I'm a member of the VFW and the AMVETS through my brother, who was part of the Air Force. He retired after 20 years, so I joined them. So I'm pretty much involved in the community. I love this community, and that's what I did my entire career. You can't be a police officer and not be part of the community. You are all in the community. You actually ingrain into it. So as far as the specific organizations, those would be my top 4 or 5. So thank you.
So probably most importantly for me, community involvement is with my church. I have served both as the church council president at First United Methodist Church of Mount Dora. I've also served on the staff parish pastor committee for that church. I'm currently on the permanent endowment committee for the church. I also serve on the Ice House board of directors. My wife served on that board prior to me. She is a life member of that board, and I'm currently on that board. As far as the county goes, I'm on the Public Safety Advisory Committee. I'm on the Sales Tax Advisory Committee. I'm also a member of the Shared Services Network. I'm also a part of the Emergency Policy Group. Every day during Irma, I was sitting in the EOC 3 times a day. And luckily, my son had been deployed to Okinawa, so I got to use his SUV to get there. But I was in the Emergency Operations Center 3 times a day prior to that.
As you are both Republicans, how would you infuse the values of the Republican Party into the administration of the clerk's office?
So I think as Republicans, we look for fiscal responsibility, and that's the number one thing here on the Tea Party. I think I've been very fiscally responsible in the office. Since I've been there, as I mentioned, we have reduced the budget $1.3 million. We've reduced the staff 25%. Also, someone asked me at a recent meeting my views on the United States Constitution, and my answer to that was fairly simple. I'm a Scalia guy, and those of you who know what that is, means that you look at the Constitution at the time that it was written in the context of history in which it was written. And so to the extent that we have to follow the Florida Constitution, I would hope our legal counsel with the clerk's office looks at our Florida Constitution the same way. Free market solutions for the Tea Party folks, we are not selling widgets at the clerk's office. So for us, it truly is just a service industry. We are not a group other than service for you. So we don't provide a free market solution for you, but we do provide great service, I think.
Well, with this, I mean, you always hear God, country, fiscal management. Those are our foundations. I probably would throw a little twist on that. You know, at some point, the back and forth that both parties do, and this is me and from my heart, there has to be something where we start looking at the other side and giving value to everyone as a human being. And just because you don't see eye to eye with them doesn't mean you can't walk hand in hand. So to me, it's those core values, but it's also demonstrating it through the idea of you valuing, respecting yourself, and then showing others the same. That would be me for Republican.
From the audience, will you retain the present staff employees? I'm guessing an employee like that.
Absolutely. If I'm honored enough to be your clerk of court, the last thing you do is go and you just get rid of everybody. This is a team effort. There is not one organization that I've ever seen that one person did everything. It's impossible. And if the one person is very successful, it's because they had a lot of folks making them look good. At the police department, I told our sergeants and officers, because they would ask, what's your job as the lieutenant for the chief? And I said, I have one job. That's to make him look good. And as long as I keep that in my mind, to make the chief look good, my job will always be done correctly. So for the staff here at the clerk's office, because I know that might have been going around, and I would be concerned as well, absolutely not. No one will be terminated just because I get elected. So that is not how it works in an organization. You don't walk in, get rid of everybody, and then just go sit in a big office and go, I've got it. So, no. Thank you.
So obviously, as Neil retired, I had the opportunity, if I so chose, to eliminate employees, make changes in employees. I mentioned at the start of this talk, I have 184 great employees. And let me tell you how to describe those employees to any new applicant. I tell any new applicant that we are a clerk family. So Jim Watkins ran for office in 1972 and took office in 1973. And I told Jim ever since 1974 that office had been running really well. And Jim said, wait, I took office in 73. And I said, I know, it took you about a year to get there. But once you got there, what Jim created and what Neil kept in place and what I intend to keep in place is an employee family. I tell every applicant that comes to that office that what we're looking for is someone who is very bright, very dedicated, eager to work, but most importantly, what we're looking for is someone who fits into that family. We are a family of 184 first cousins. Sometimes you don't get along with your first cousin. I have a lot of first cousins. I have one cousin that has 11 in his family as cousins. But we are a family, and we will stick together as a family. You know, family members come and go. There's a young man in the audience here tonight that came to me when he was going through UF online, which is a very hard thing to do. And when I interviewed him, he said he wanted to be a lawyer. And I told him if he would come to work for me and give me a couple of good years, I would do everything I could to make sure he became a lawyer. He finished UF. He got into law school. He went through his first year, decided law wasn't for him, and it's not for everybody. It's for me, it's for my wife, it's for my youngest, I hope. But now he's a teacher, and a very successful teacher. And so we treat you like a family at our office, and I will continue to do that.
Do you have plans on making the South Lake, Mineola, and the North Lake, the villages, branch offices, full-service locations that would allow citizens to avoid traveling to the Tavares office for clerk services other than marriages and passports? And we'll tie with that an audience question of do you have any plans to expand online resources?
So the South Lake office currently has employees there who are marriage license and passport folks. We are actually going to expand that service. We are in the throes of doing that right now. We are going to utilize someone to start taking payments for us down there for traffic tickets and those things, because the South Lake folks that are there, they don't want to travel to Tavares simply to pay a ticket or what have you. In our office, it's not simply just paying a ticket or paying a fine. A lot of folks can't afford to pay that big lump right up front. And so those folks actually sign up for us with a payment plan, which takes a little bit of work. And so we're going to dedicate an office down in South Lake right now to sit down so you can fill out that paperwork. If you're indigent and need a payment plan, so that you can make those payments over time. It costs you $25 to sign up for the payment plan, and then you make your payments over time. And we are moving forward with that already. We already have that in motion in South Lake. The North Lake office is a lot less busy. We will have to see in North Lake what effect the villages has as they come through Fruitland Park and down back into Lake County. Most of the villages, for example, is now in Sumter and Marion County, not in the lake. They started originally in Lake with Orange Blossom Hills, but then they did not develop in Lake, but now they are coming full bore down Lake County. And so as that expands, we will likely have to expand the service in that office also. So our records are all available to you online, every record that we have in the office. So Lake County was founded in 1887. We have official records back to 1884 because we have the Sumter County records and the Orange County records too. And our court records are all online and available to you. Any one of those 50 million pages, if you want to see them, you ask for them, we find them, we scan them, we make sure there's nothing in there that's confidential that you can't see, and we put them online. So pretty much every record we have on the court side and on the official record side is already online.
I looked at, and these are questions that, maybe they just can't be done. You have the tax collector, driver's license. He has offices all over the place in Lake County, more than any other government entity. Putting clerks with that office. So if you're there getting your driver's license, tag renewed, things like that, you could have a clerk of court right there also with, if there's anything with paying the fees or the fines that Gary just spoke about, to expand it to there's even more. I've yet to find anybody that'd love to drive up from Four Corners, park at the parking garage, walk into the clerk house, to forget they missed something or one piece of paper, go back to the parking garage, drive all the way back down to Four Corners to come back up, taking 2-3 hours to do something that's very simple. So my answer would be it would be expanded and even greatly more so.
All right. And I guess you're going to actually blend right into the next question. Do you think there's opportunity in collaborating with other constitutional or government agencies?
Oh, absolutely.
Government can benefit.
Absolutely. Now, there may be some reason that I don't know, but I've asked that question, and it kind of was like, maybe no one's thought about it, maybe it can't be done, maybe there's some law or there's some statute that's going to prohibit partnering with other public entities that's part of our government to staff the clerk that makes it more accessible to the public. My whole thought is we're not here for ourselves, we're here for the public. So make it a little bit more easier, a little bit more understanding, and a little bit more convenient.
So in the North Lake office, we actually share space with property appraiser. So we currently share space with Carrie Baker's office in North Lake. In South Lake, we share space with the city of Mineola. We're in Mineola City Hall. So yes, we share space with other folks to make sure that the taxpayers aren't double paying. As far as cooperation, we are the tax deed seller for the tax collector. So Carrie appraises, Bob collects, and if Bob can't collect, the tax certificate is sold. And when that tax certificate is sold, and it goes more than 3 years, then we do all the paperwork, and we get the paperwork, and we sell a tax deed. So we already are in cooperation with other governmental entities in Lake County. I think we work well with those entities. Today's meeting of the VAB involved the property appraiser. We can't do the VAB without the property appraiser's input. So yes, we are currently in cooperation with other agencies in the county.
Going to the last question, discuss how you see the annual budget for the clerk's office and how you might change it.
So the budget for the clerk's office is actually 3 different budgets. So there is what we call a board transfer budget, there is a fee-based budget, and there's a courtside budget. The courtside budget is the most complicated of that process, so I'll leave it to last. So the transfer budget is simply the county commission in my office look at the amount of services that they want us to provide, and then we figure out the cost of those services, and the county commission uses its money, your money, to pay for those services. And a good example of that is the consolidation of the ambulance service and the fire service in the county. The county has decided not to use an outside payroll vendor, and we are now going to be the payroll folks for the EMS fire folks. We are already the payroll for the fire folks, but we're going to pick up the EMS folks. That's going to require additional time, additional staffing, so the county commission is going to pay us a little more for that. So that's the transfer side of the budget. The fee side of the budget is the fees that we earn for the official records and marriage license and passports. So on that side of the office, we pay for ourselves with the fees that we generate. The court side budget is a lot more complicated. The legislature has decided that it's not based upon the cost of the service that we provide. It's based upon the amount of revenue we can bring in. There's a revenue estimating committee that determines what they think the estimated revenue is going to be for the year. They then set our budget accordingly, but what they do is they set a statewide budget for courts statewide. And there's a corporation that's referred to as the CCOC. Part of our budget is provided by the CCOC. All of our court budget comes out of the CCOC. The legislature takes the rest. So they tell us, based on our revenue, what they think we can spend on the court side. If we can't earn that revenue, then too bad. If we earn more than that revenue, it goes into the general fund. We are actually a donor county, so we actually generate more revenue typically than our budget, and we donate to other counties through the CCOC. That process we would like to fix with the legislature, and we will continue to work on that.
Okay, how do you follow that? My God. Mine would have been a simpler version. Thank you, Gary, for explaining that.
They both get an award, one for the most detailed answer and one for the briefest. Now, we will reverse order, and we'll have closing statements, your final opportunity to explain to the voters why they should vote for you. You have 3 minutes, no more.
I won't need it. You know, folks, when I talked to my wife and we decided to do this was a very hard decision. I've been out of the public limelight for almost 1.5 years. I have a great life retired. I come and go as I please. I make very good money. I have more time with my children and family. That's something that I didn't have for my entire career as a law enforcement officer. Public service, it's a self-sacrifice that you must make in order for it to work. I will tell you this, this journey that we've been on, and I feel like I've been on it with all of you in this room, even those that are supporting Gary and those that are supporting me. I've appreciated the opportunity to do this. It's definitely a lot more work than I thought it was going to be, but I've met some incredible people along the way. Me and Gary, we've been drug all over Lake County, meeting different folks and different forums from daylight to dark. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I totally appreciate everyone being here tonight, listening to both of us. And you know what? God bless you. You vote for either one of us. I'm okay with it because we have a great community. We have a great partnership. I love Lake County. I love the city of Tavares. That will never change, and I appreciate you being here. God bless you.
As I mentioned, I've been with the office 7 years, and I mentioned earlier that I worked some time back for the chief judge of the circuit. That was Judge Ernest C. Alls Jr., who's now passed away. I loved working for Judge Alls. I will tell you that, let me back up just a little bit. So as I was making the decision to run, I spoke with someone, and as I was leaving their office, he said to me, I would like to thank you for your service to Lake County for those 7 years I put in for the time with Judge Alls. I was a city attorney for years and years, and I turned back to him and I said, there is no need to thank me. I love every minute of every day that I'm serving you in the office of the Clerk of the Court. I have never had a bad day in those 7 years. There are days when you have to do things that aren't fun. Employee discipline is never fun, so if you have to discipline an employee and you think it's fun, you need to go do something else. So I love the office. It has been a 7-year adventure. We have over 1,000 tasks that we perform for the court. We have been on a committee in our office. We were asked to serve on a statewide committee to define those tasks. Bill Mathias walks into meetings and he brings out a spreadsheet about the budget, and that spreadsheet's about this long. And if I brought the spreadsheet I created for that task force, we would stretch that from this wall to those restrooms. But it is a love affair with the office. It is a wonderful place to work with wonderful employees. So you never have to thank me for my service to you. I love serving the citizens of Lake County. I love serving the citizens with those employees. I think we've done a really good job in the last 7 years that I've been there. I know Neil Kelly did a good job before that. And I know Jim Watkins did a good job before that. And I expect to carry on that tradition of excellence, of customer service, that tradition of helping the public. There's a lady sitting in this audience tonight. I received one of the nicest letters I've ever received commending her for her public service. She went above and beyond for a customer to help out, and I got a really nice letter about that. And that's not my doing, that's her doing. So I ask for your support on August 28th. I ask your support as we're early voting and as we're absentee voting to keep that office what it is, an office that's dedicated to the citizens of Lake County, an office where it's a good place to work, that provides excellent service for the citizens. If you haven't gotten excellent service at that office, if you will see me tonight and take one of my cards, I'll find out why. I'm Gary Cooney. I'm the current clerk of the court in Lake County. I love every minute of the job. I love serving you, and I hope to continue to serve you in the future. Thank you very much.
This concludes our question and answers. I commend both candidates for behaving, as I commend you for behaving. This is my 10 seconds of my own editorial comment that every gathering for the past year and a half, God bless the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. 6 more years. I'm going to ask the candidates to stay up on the podium for a moment for photos. And thank you all. Make sure you talk with the candidates one-on-one. Ask them the questions that I might have missed. And have a wonderful evening.
Give JC a hand for being our moderator.